There's been a lot of talk over the last 6 to 12 months of whether he's got the staying power he needs to remain in office until 2024. That seems unbelievable when you reflect that a year ago he was elected with an 80-seat majority. There has been question marks over his leadership, not least in the light of how the government has handled the pandemic. And we know that they're facing a public inquiry at some point next year into how they have handled the outbreak, and that couldn't bode particularly well for both Prime Minister and party. But on the other side, if he can always hark back to the fact that he did, as he promised, get Brexit done, then that's going to politically strengthen him. It's also going to give a bit more of a guarantee that people in red wall seats will continue to vote Tory. In a way, you could say that the vote in 2019 was slightly experimental and maybe a little short-lived. People were voting for Boris Johnson for two reasons: because they wanted Brexit to be done, and also because they didn't want Jeremy Corbyn to be in number 10. With both of those two issues having gone away, Boris Johnson then needs to build on that success and I suppose prove to that electorate, particularly in the Midlands and the North, that he is going to honour his levelling up commitments. That's going to be really difficult because economically we're facing huge adversity in the post-COVID future. Rishi Sunak obviously has had to throw a great deal of money at the furlough scheme and other measures to help businesses through this crisis. So it's going to be difficult for Boris Johnson to kind of level up, if you like, his own key spending priorities amid criticism that, you know, there's too much debt, there's too much borrowing, and at some point he's going to have to raise taxes perhaps in order to try and recoup some of this vast expenditure. So there's all that to play for. For Labour, it always means, of course, that Boris Johnson will be able to argue that he is the leader that got Brexit done and that Keir Starmer hasn't proved his statesmanlikeness, if that's a word, in any way. You know, Boris Johnson will be able to continue this narrative of Keir Starmer being an observer to events. He's the person that sorts them out. Keir Starmer is the man sniping from the sidelines. There has been a criticism of Boris Johnson's cabinet being rather too supine and overly loyal, suggestions that actually Dominic Cummings was heavily involved in the appointment of various ministers who seemed to show unwavering support to Boris Johnson and wouldn't cause him too many problems by briefing journalists like me or others against him inside cabinet. But then the flip side of that has been that a lot of Tory MPs have complained about a lack of experience, a lack of challenging of government decisions from within. Also, there's a sense that the cabinet has been devalued because these subcommittees have been set up to deal with COVID. And what happens is at subcommittee level, decisions are made, and then the wider cabinet is just there to rubber stamp. And that begs the question, well, that undermines cabinet government, really. It almost says that a lot of these people are completely irrelevant because a very small knit team is making all of the major decisions. And is that right? So when we talk about this cabinet reset, we are talking about a reshuffle, but we're also talking about perhaps a reinstatement of proper cabinet government, which appears to have been absent over the last 12 months. So yes, we could see a reset in 2021, which means that Johnson's administration perhaps is shored up by a bit more experience as it faces arguably its most difficult economic period since the global financial crisis.